In these next two, we want to use substitution again, but these are definite integrals. So we want to rewrite them, and it actually says you don't even need to evaluate the integral. So we're just making sure we know how to change the indices also, not just use the substitution and change the function inside there. All right, well, this looks like, and it might help. So we have a exponent of a little binomial here in the denominator, so maybe it would help to write it as the integral of -1 to 0 of -12x times 2x squared plus 4 to the -2 power. And so our u will be 2x squared plus 4, which means du will equal 4x dx. All right, we can go to make our substitution. And these were to be used when we were dealing with x, but we're not dealing with x anymore, so we have to change them to in terms of u. So what we do is when x is 0, so that's this one up here. So if x is 0, what does u equal? Well, we have 2 times 0 squared plus 4. So u equals 4, so our top one needs to be 4. And then if x equals -1. If x equals -1, we have 2 times -1 squared plus 4, which is 6. So it looks a little interesting because we have a higher number on top, a greater number on the bottom than the 6, but we do just do the substitution and things will work out as they're supposed to. So now that we've figured that out, we can do our other substitution here. We want to, and we'll use this form over here. So we're going to take this out, and that's u. So we have u to the -2, and we need this in terms of u, not x. So here we have 4x dx. Well, we can think of this as -3 times 4. And so once again, there's our 4x dx. And so instead of putting 4x dx, we can put du. So du, and then we had just this -3 left over. So the -3 can come out front here. Here's the integral we want. Let's write that a little more condensed here. And you can do u to the -2 or 1 over u squared. And that's the answer, because it did say we don't have to evaluate the integral. The next one's going to be very much like this one. There's our u. So u equals x squared minus 1, which means du is 2x dx. We want to go ahead and do our substitution. So right off the bat, we want to put when x equals 0, because again, these right now are for x's. We need them to be for u's, so we're going to plug in 0. And we get u equals -1, because 0 squared is 0 minus 1, so -1. And then plugging in -1, -1 is, squared is 1, 1 minus 1 is 0, so it's u equals 0. And now we can do the rest of our substitution. We're going to have u to the 4th here. We see we have a 2x dx, so this 4 can be written as 2 times 2, so there's our 2x dx. And we can plug in du for that, and we're left with that 2. So there is our answer to number 7. We'll go ahead and move on to these next two. This has to do with even and odd functions, so we need to remember that even functions are symmetric about the y-axis. So even functions are things like parabolas that are symmetric about the x-axis, and then odd functions are symmetric about the origin. So like an x cubed function is odd. Now it's not just x squared and x cubed that we use, but remember that symmetry. So symmetric about the y-axis and symmetric about the origin. Which means for integrals, for even functions, if they're even, if you do the same value on both sides, the integral to the left of 0 will be the same as the integral to the right of 0. Odd functions, they will be opposite. So if the integral over here was 7, and we went to that same x value, but the opposite on the other side, that would be -7. So let's take a look. If the integral from -10 to 0 of f of x dx is 7 and f of x is an even function, so symmetric about the y-axis, find the integral from -10 to 10. Well, it's saying these two will be the same. It's not necessarily a parabola, but from -10 to 0 will be the same as 0 to 10. So from 0 to 10, you don't have to write this out. You probably have figured it out already. So from 0 to 10 also has to be 7, which means for this one, it has to equal 14 because you're going from -10 all the way to 10. And then this odd one here, from -3 to 0, the integral from -3 to 0 of g of x dx is 16. G of x is an odd function. Find from 0 to 3. Well, if from -3 to 0 is 16, and this is odd, 0 to 3 has to be -16. Another one that you might see is if it's going from -3 to 3, and it's odd, what's that going to be? Well, it's going to be 0 because you had a 16 and a -16. But that one was not asking for that. There's the answer right there.